Billy Luna.
Listen, if he got out of his seat, pointed in my face, told me, "F you," they said he spit or whatever. He pointed in my face, I'm going to crack him. He might be able to knock me the out, but I'm still cracking him.
Yeah.
Listen, I've been shot, bombed, stabbed, beat up, hit with bats. He's another woman beater, beating his wife up twice, threw her down the steps. All of them, they love beating girls up.
Just to start trouble.
And he's saying, he's a real tough guy. And this other jerk that was on the other day, Dominic, he said, Chris is a real tough guy. He's a tough guy. This guy set up a lady. He killed an innocent lady in front of her 5-year-old daughter, and they're glorifying him as a tough guy. He's in Miami. He owns nightclubs. He's in California. He owns nightclubs. They got him down as a hero. What kind of tough guy is that?
Yeah.
An innocent lady?
This is Game with Joey Merlino.
Please subscribe to the Billy Luna channel and like the video. Thank you.
Skinny Joey Merlino just dropped a new Patreon episode on which he addressed several topics, including a supposed altercation at a sporting event between the Skinny One and a former Bonanno associate turned rat, Chris Pacello. On the episode, Joey also touches on another mob rat, J.R. Rubio, who was paid massive amounts of money by the U.S. government to set Joey up, claiming Merlino was the head of a massive criminal enterprise. The so-called East Coast Cosa Nostra enterprise, an alleged collaboration involving Skinny Joey Merlino of the Philadelphia family and the Genovese, Gambino, Lucchese, and Bonanno Cosa Nostra families. I'm going to explain everything to you, including breaking down all of the players and their alleged organized crime ties. Stay tuned until the end of the video because all will be revealed.
Everything they say is lies. Like this shit, Boca, he told somebody. First of all, he lied. He said he was there with Chris Pacello. That never happened.
Yeah.
He never got out of his seat. Listen, if he got out of his seat, pointed in my face, told me, "F you," they said he spit or whatever. He pointed in my face, I'm going to crack him. He might be able to knock me the out, but I'm still cracking him.
Yeah.
Listen, I've been shot, bombed, stabbed, beat up, hit with bats. So I ain't ducking no right. He never got out of his seat.
Yeah.
And Boca Joe wasn't even there, the lying motherfucker. It was me, Donnie, and Little Wags.
Yeah. And he said he was there. That's the best part.
Yeah, he said he was there. Well, it must be hallucinating on the drugs he's on.
And Chris,
well, that's what he's looking for now. He's robbing everybody, and then he's going to get pinched, and then he's going to do like everybody else does. Joey told me to do it. Joey and his friends told me to do it.
There was a kid on the other day, Dominic Callie. He was on there, and he said, and that other month from Gangland, Capisi, he called me up. I was at a Heat game, me and Wags and Donnie, like 5 years ago. And we had the floor seats.
Yeah.
So at halftime, we were going into the Grey Goose Lounge to get a drink for halftime. And that Sunday, it was a Sunday, there was an article in the Miami Herald, the front page about me. This was like 3 days later, I don't know when it was. So I'm walking, I don't know him. If you walked in here right now, I don't know who the f*** is.
Yeah.
I'm walking, and the guy's waving to me. He was sitting with this old Indian guy. The guy was like 80 years old. And the guy's waving to me. I was like, who the f*** is that? You know, I didn't know who it was.
Yeah, you're just waving.
And Wag said, you know what it is? I said, no. He said, Chris Pacello. The f*** you waving to me for, that rat mother, lying mother. So I told you. And we just walked away. Don't wave to me. We walked inside, got a drink. But 2 years later, Capisi puts in the paper, not at Gangland, that other gossip column where all the rats tell him everything. Puts in there that he came up to me, pointed in my face, told me, like, talking
A whole made-up story.
Yeah, whole made-up story. So I said, listen, here's the day of the game. Go back and get the tape from the game and see if that's a total lie. He never got out of his seat. Never got out of his seat.
Just to start trouble.
And he's saying, he's a real tough guy. And this other jerk that was on the other day, Dominic, he said Chris is a real tough guy. He's a tough guy. This guy set up a lady. He killed an innocent lady in front of her 5-year-old daughter, and they're glorifying him as a tough guy. He's in Miami. He owns nightclubs. He's in California. He owns nightclubs. They got him down as a hero. What kind of tough guy is that?
Yeah.
An innocent lady?
In a town where club owners become celebrities, Chris Pacello is a star. With his partner Ingrid Casares, he owns clubs like Liquid and Barroom and restaurants like Joya. hobnobbing with the celebrity elite. Federal grand jury indicted the 28-year-old on multiple charges: racketeering, conspiracy, felony murder, and robbery.
Chris Pacello had become the king of South Beach. He and his friends would ride their bikes to nearby Bath Avenue, a Bonanno crime family stronghold, under the control of alleged capo Anthony Spiro.
Kids growing up in Brooklyn looked up to the gangsters.
When he was arrested for auto theft at 16, Pacello proved he was more than an errand boy. He pled guilty to a lesser charge and got off. The wise guys took notice.
They called him the binger because he loved to binge on crime. You know, if his friends stole one car, he stole three. If they busted into one video store, he hit two.
And with some new Staten Island friends and his old Bath Avenue associates, the binger turned to crime with a vengeance.
His house across the street is 95 Mead Loop, the former residence of the Shemtov family.
Shemtov owned a lot of businesses, and apparently he didn't believe in banks. He kept a lot of cash in a safe, really built into the basement of this posh Staten Island home. And Chris had gotten wind of this, and his mind started racing. It was a freezing cold night in 1993. They drive in this Mercury sedan to the home of Judy Shemtov and her husband Sammy.
What happens is Tommy Reynolds and Jimmy Calandra walk up to the door, ring the bell, and when Judy Shemtov opened the door thinking it was someone who was calling for her daughter, Reynolds fired the gun and shot her dead.
And then they run to a car, a waiting car, which is across the street or in front of the house. And the car speeds off toward Mead Street.
Behind the wheel is Chris Pacello. And he's like, he didn't know what happened in there. You know, it was supposed to be a simple robbery. Go in, tie up the husband, get the number to the safe, and get out. Easy, simple. Another simple robbery, but everything went wrong.
Welcome to Miami.
So Pacello shows up to South Beach, you know, in the early 90s.
1999, just 5 years after he had arrived from Brooklyn, Chris Pacello had become the king of South Beach.
I'm here with Chris Pacello, prominently known as the King of Sobe, bringing us nightclubs from the 90s as Liquid and Today's Story. What brings you here tonight, Function?
Come in and support some friends. Function, the owner of Function's a good friend of mine. They do a great job, so they asked me to come out, and I'm happy to oblige.
The lieutenant in the Strategic Investigations Unit came up with an idea to contact the FBI and ask them who their highest profile organized crime figure would be on the beach. And we would initiate an undercover investigation into this person. And they came up with Chris's name.
The Miami Beach police will divulge little about their investigation, but they will say that an undercover policeman wearing a wire spent a lot of time with Pacello, posing as a dirty cop. And there was mounting evidence that Pacello still had ties to organized crime.
At one point, Chris took this cop in his 50-foot yacht up the Intercoastal to a waterside restaurant. And they met Alphonse Persico, the alleged head of the Colombo crime family.
New York had received information from a crack suspect who had mob ties.
And he has information about a homicide that takes place in 93 involving a woman getting shot in the face. Judy Shemtov.
Christian Ludwigson, better known as Chris Pacello, could be released on bond.
Chris Pacello had it all: money, power, and the adoration of Miami's elite. The flashy club king known for bringing South Beach nightlife to new heights in the 1990s, dated pop queen Madonna, and ran hotspots that defined an era. But beneath the glitz, the Brooklyn-born hustler was hiding a dark secret. His past as a ruthless mob associate tied to robbery, violence, and the brutal murder of a woman. Pacello, whose real name is Christian Lugwidson, wasn't just a smooth-talking entrepreneur. He was a streetwise gangster with deep ties to the Bonanno and Colombo crime families, and his climb to the top was paved with blood and betrayal. Pacello's dream life in Miami came crashing down in 1999 when federal prosecutors linked him to a botched Staten Island home invasion that ended with an innocent 46-year-old woman, Judith Shemtoff, being brutally murdered in cold blood. On December 14, 1992, according to the federal indictment, Pacello, along with Thomas Reynolds and other members of the Bath Avenue crew, robbed a chemical bank in the Staten Island Mall and made off with $300,000. The Brooklyn, New York Bath Avenue crew was a group of young mob cutthroats associated with the Bonanno crime family. 2 months later, on February 18th, shortly before 10 p.m., according to prosecutors, Reynolds, accompanied by at least one other man, rang the doorbell of 95 Mead Loop in the wealthy Richmond Valley area of Staten Island. Inside the home, Judith Shemtoff, 46, and her husband Sammy were having a cup of tea together. Judith answered the door, assuming it was her daughter's boyfriend. Her husband overheard her talking to the young men. As he got up to see who was there, according to prosecutors, Reynolds put a .45 caliber handgun in Judith Shemtoff's face and fired the weapon at point-blank range. Judith died 2 hours later. Judith Shemtoff's murder baffled police for 7 years. I remember it was a very cold night, Arctic, said Dean Balasamy, who covered the murder for the Staten Island Advance. That's probably why there were no witnesses. It was only around the beginning of 1999 when the FBI, in the midst of a mob investigation of the Bonanno family, stumbled across people thought to be witnesses to both the robbery and the murder, including some who had participated in them. After interviewing these people, the government concluded that Judith Shemtoff had been killed in a botched robbery by members of the Bath Ave crew, who believed that there was up to $1 million in a safe in her house, and that Chris Pacello had helped orchestrate the senseless murder and had driven the getaway car on the night of the deed. It was a horrible crime, says a former NYPD detective. We're talking about a totally innocent victim here. By the time feds caught up with him, Pacello was a Miami mogul, running nightclubs like Liquid, where celebrities like Jennifer Lopez, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Sylvester Stallone partied until dawn. But all of the velvet ropes in the world couldn't save Pacello from the rap sheet prosecutors had compiled. Facing life in prison, Pacello made a move that shocked both the mob and Miami's elite. He flipped, becoming a government rat. Pacello, the one-time tough guy turned government rat, provided crucial testimony that helped take down more than 70 Mafia figures, including Bonanno boss Joe Massino. Chris Pacello and Jimmy Calandra testified against Tommy Reynolds in the murder of Judith Shemtoff. Tommy Reynolds ended up in prison, and Calandra and Pacello skated with easy sentences as rats. Pacello's cooperation cut his sentence down to 7 years, far less than the decades he was staring down. Here Joey is talking about J.R. Rubio.
He's another woman beater, beat his wife up twice, threw her down the steps. All of them, they love beating girls up.
And you hear the tapes 50 times, Joey screaming at the guy, like get away from him.
You know he's a no-good motherfucker. There's a tape, I got to find it. He's on the phone with his wife from jail, and the wife's complaining about the dog food's expensive. He's like, give the dogs away, you motherfucker. They should give you away. Keep the dogs.
Yeah.
He's like, give them away. I wouldn't give my dog away if you killed me.
Same here.
I'm going to tell you the story of how the FBI gave a rat $25,000 to throw a lavish dinner party for Skinny Joey Merlino and alleged members of the New York Mafia to trap them. I'm also going to break down the massive case that the feds tried to build against the so-called East Coast Cosa Nostra enterprise, an alleged collaboration involving Skinny Joey Merlino of the Philadelphia family and the Genovese, Gambino, Lucchese, and Bonanno Cosa Nostra families.
Billy Luna.
paid FBI informant J.R. Rubio, in his own words, on how working with the feds to get Skinny Joey Merlino helped Rubio be a more effective criminal in the street.
I almost felt like I could be a better criminal because I worked for them, because I knew they weren't watching me. I knew that, I was committing more crimes when I was working for them than when I was on the street, and they were paying me. They were paying me $15,000 a month, and I was making another $15,000 a month committing crimes. That just goes to show everybody how important Joey was to them. That's how important he was to the FBI. They wanted him badly. They wanted him. He's very funny, and he says, Cougine, why the f*** you want to come with me? He says, you got the best of it. He says, you got me, you got Patsy, and you got Rooster. Who's bothering you? He says. He was sharp. I was also gambling behind the FBI's back, too. I was still doing my sports business.
The Fed spent millions of taxpayer dollars to get Skinny Joey Merlino, but the skinny one is a hard target. The federal government dropped a cool $25,000 to trap, or should I say entrap, 20 alleged wise guys, including Skinny Joey Merlino, at a mobster Last Supper, complete with a bought and paid for rat named J.R. Rubio playing the role of Judas. FBI Special Agent William Inzerillo spilled the tea about the setup at a racketeering trial of Philly's alleged Mafia boss, Joseph Skinny Joey Merlino, who joined other alleged mafiosi at the so-called La Cosa Nostra Christmas party in the Bronx. FBI agent Inzerillo testified in Manhattan federal court, quote, we supplied them money, we paid for the party, over 20 people attended the party, and we paid for all of them. Most of the alleged hoods who feasted upon gnocchi, bolognese, and fettuccine at Pasquale's Rigoletta on Arthur Avenue in the Bronx found themselves in cuffs during a massive bust of 46 alleged mobsters. The guest list of the posh dinner party included the joint's owner, reputed powerful Genovese capo, Pasquale Patsy Perillo, alleged Philly boss, Skinny Joey Merlino, and alleged acting Genovese capo, Eugene Rooster Onofrio. The December 8th, 2014 dinner party marked the only time these three, allegedly the linchpins in a supposed sprawling multi-mafia family racketeering scheme, were spotted together during the Fed's 5-year probe. The three alleged mafia heavyweights posed for a photo, and one of them ironically joked that the photo op may land them all in prison. Prosecutors engineered the alleged gangster dinner in order to nab Skinny Joey Merlino, ensuring Manhattan jurisdiction and prosecution for the case against him. The feds even bankrolled Skinny Joey Merlino's trip from Boca Raton, Florida, Agent Inzerillo testified. We paid $5,000 to fly Skinny Joey Merlino and his wife up from Boca Raton, Agent Inzerillo said. Skinny Joey's wisecracking defense lawyer, Edwin Jacobs Jr., asked why taxpayers picked up the hefty tab for the supposed La Cosa Nostra Christmas party. Hold on, let me just say something about this. A pet peeve of mine is when people, the government, or the media refer to La Cosa Nostra. Cosa Nostra means this thing of ours, or our thing. The word la means the. So when you say La Cosa Nostra, you're basically saying this thing of ours, or the our thing. It doesn't make any sense. Nobody in the mob says La Cosa Nostra. They say Cosa Nostra. But still, writers of major books, members of the government, FBI, judges, they constantly refer to that, or as the abbreviation LCN for La Cosa Nostra. That name was created by the FBI way back in the day, and also used by the media. It's ridiculous. Anybody who says La Cosa Nostra, it sounds stupid, and it's like, I see so many journalists and writers using this. Okay, it's Cosa Nostra. Okay, back to the story. As I was saying, Skinny Joey's defense lawyer, Eddie Jacobs Jr., asked why taxpayers picked up the hefty tab for the supposed Cosa Nostra Christmas party. Agent Inzerillo answered, "We didn't want to pay for it, but that was what Rubio, the rat, needed." Jacobs, who helped Joey Merlino dodge murder charges in 2001, pressed on why taxpayers covered Joey's hefty party bill. The federal case started in 2016 with 46 arrests and alleged that the so-called East Coast La Cosa Nostra enterprise was a crime cooperative among 4 New York crime families and the alleged boss of the Philadelphia Mafia, Skinny Joey Merlino. The organized crime operation stretched from Springfield, Massachusetts to South Florida, with stops in Little Italy and Yonkers, the feds charged. The indictment reads like an old-school mafia novel, but the 40-plus arrests of mob associates, soldiers, capos, and a boss show this isn't fiction, said an FBI assistant director in charge, Diego Rodriguez. Established mob moneymakers like illegal gambling, arson, loan sharking, and extortion were integral to the collaboration involving alleged Philadelphia boss Skinny Joey Merlino and the Genovese, Gambino, Lucchese, and Bonanno crime families. The FBI said that the group also peddled more than $3 million worth of untaxed cigarettes. The alleged mobsters used coded language when discussing criminal get-togethers and typically met at rest stops and restaurants along highways, authorities said. The FBI alleges that in thousands of hours of recordings made by FBI agents and informants, the participants spoke bluntly about their brutal business. In one instance, alleged Genovese capo, Pasquale Patsy Perillo, dispatched a trio of underlings to collect an unpaid gambling debt with this advice: choke him, actually choke the motherfucker, and tell him, listen to me, next time I'm not going to stop choking, I'm going to kill you. According to the feds, Merlino, Perillo, and Eugene Rooster Onofrio were the ruling troika of the vast criminal enterprise. The myriad of criminal schemes pursued by these 3 powerful LCN leaders and their underlings were in many respects intertwined, said U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara in a court filing. According to the FBI, the confidential informant J.R. Rubio worked for both Perillo and Joey Merlino, who was reportedly trying to revive the long-fractured Philadelphia Mafia family after his September 2014 release from prison, say the authorities. Merlino, though twice convicted on federal charges, managed to dodge 3 counts of murder and 2 counts of attempted murder in previous trials, say the feds. FBI informants also working with Rooster Onofrio, who runs twin mob crews on Mulberry Street in Little Italy and in Springfield, Massachusetts, said authorities. Several defendants were charged with running an illegal Yonkers casino featuring poker, dice games, and racetrack betting. The racketeering trial unfolded as Assistant U.S. Attorney Max Nichols painted a picture of Joseph Skinny Joey Merlino as a mafia kingpin turned fraudulent mastermind, orchestrating a scheme that lined the pockets of an East Coast crime syndicate. According to Nichols, Merlino, once a notorious figure in Philadelphia's underworld, shifted gears to become a restaurateur in Boca, only to relapse into his criminal ways. Allegations claim Merlino spearheaded a sprawling scam, bribing doctors to issue phony prescriptions for a pain cream, raking in millions in insurance payouts. Nichols emphasized Merlino's iron grip on the operation, asserting he called the shots, always in favor of taking and keeping money. But Merlino's defense attorney, Eddie Jacobs, painted a different picture, arguing his client was framed by deceitful cohorts or rats seeking leniency. Jacobs depicted Merlino as a victim of his own weaknesses, particularly his gambling addiction. Eddie Jacobs described Merlino's failed attempts to escape his past, settling in Florida with his family and pets, only to be ensnared by his gambling demons. Rat J.R. Rubio spent over 6 hours spilling his guts on the stand. Rubio rocked a royal blue prison jumpsuit and orange slip-ons. The rat betrayed his dear friends to dodge a life sentence for drug deals and more. Prosecutors played nearly 20 secret tapes Rubio made, including one where he insists, "Hey, listen, I'm not a scumbag." This comment sparked snickers from Joey Merlino's crew in the gallery. Joey Merlino would slip through the Fed's fingers when the jury at the racketeering trial announced it was hopelessly deadlocked, despite 4 days of deliberations. The jury was unable to reach a verdict on allegations that Merlino engaged in illegal gambling, loan sharking, healthcare fraud, and racketeering. After the mistrial was declared, Merlino told reporters, "Thank God for the jury." Eventually, Skinny Joey Merlino got the okay to remove his ankle bracelet after he pleaded guilty to one single count of illegal gambling that allowed him to avoid retrial, which made everybody happy, except the judge. Rather than retry him, the feds agreed to let him cop to the least serious count in his indictment. Illegal gambling carries a maximum 2 years in the slammer. Racketeering, by contrast, carries a maximum of 20 years in prison. Merlino declined to comment on the slap-on-the-wrist deal that Eddie Jacobs worked out for him, but the judge who oversaw his January mistrial wasn't exactly thrilled with it. "We asked the jury to deliberate for days after sitting through a trial that lasted weeks in a case that was prepared for a year," a peeved Judge Richard Sullivan told prosecutors who arranged Merlino's guilty plea. I wonder how much taxpayer money was actually spent on this BS case in total. Patsy Perillo got 7 years, the longest sentence of all the 46 defendants in this highly publicized case that apparently fizzled out when all of the defendants except Joey Merlino opted to plead out. Perillo served 6 years, getting out in 2022. It was billed as one of the most wide-sweeping mob takedowns in years, the FBI's so-called East Coast La Cosa Nostra enterprise, but the BS case ended up going nowhere. Joey did his 2-year sentence at a Florida federal lockup not too far from his Boca Raton home. It was the first time that Skinny Joey Merlino ever pleaded guilty to a crime. In 2020, J.R. Rubio, the key witness against Merlino in the trial, claimed that flipping sides to become a federal informant enhanced both his life of crime and his bank account. "I almost felt like I could be a better criminal because I worked for them, because I knew they weren't watching me," confessed the one-time Genovese family associate, appearing on a 2020 podcast hosted by a pair of ex-organized crime associates turned rats. "I was committing more crimes when I was working for them than when I was on the street, and they were paying me $15,000 a month." Rubio, over the course of a wide-ranging 85-minute interview, admitted framing an elderly mobster for arson and deleting a year's worth of cell phone interactions with Merlino before surrendering the device to federal agents working on the massive racketeering case. "I mangled the case against Merlino," confessed Rubio, who received a sweetheart sentence of 15 months for his half-hearted cooperation. "It was embarrassing. I committed robberies while I was cooperating. I was gambling. I literally shouldn't have had an agreement."
I almost felt like I could be a better criminal because I worked for them, because I knew they weren't watching me. I knew that, I was committing more crimes when I was working for them than when I was on the street, and they were paying me. They were paying me $15,000 a month, and I was making another $15,000 a month committing crimes. That just goes to show everybody how important Joey was to them. That's how important he was to the FBI. They wanted him badly. They wanted him. He's very funny, and he says, "Cougine, why the f you want to come with me?" he says. "You got the best of it," he says. "You got me, you got Patsy, and you got Rooster. Who's bothering you?" he says. He was sharp. I was also gambling behind the FBI's back, too. I was still doing my sports business.
"This doesn't sound like the conduct of a good, credible witness," said Merlino's defense attorney, Eddie Jacobs, "and it sounds like something that counsel should have known about during the trial." The admissions came on a podcast co-hosted by former Gambino family associate John Alight and one-time Bonanno family associate Gene Borello, both now government rats. The Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Office declined to comment on Rubio's tell-all appearance, in which he admitted hitting the factory reset on his cell phone before sharing it with prosecutors investigating Merlino. Rubio had used the phone to text and call Merlino along with other law enforcement targets over the prior 12 months. "So now, on top of all the other shit I did, I just destroyed evidence," Rubio acknowledged. Manhattan federal judge Richard Sullivan pointedly grilled federal prosecutors after they cut a deal with Merlino rather than prosecute him a second time. The Boca Raton, Florida resident pleaded to a far lesser count of aiding and abetting a gambling operation. "You assured me of overwhelming evidence," said an angry Judge Sullivan in his harsh rebuke of the feds. Rubio also admitted to framing an elderly mobster for a 2011 arson incident where Rubio and two associates actually torched a rival's car. Reputed Genovese capo Anthony Tony Boyzinzi got a 4-year prison term based on Rubio's lies. Rat Rubio said that the feds wanted little to do with him by the end. "I'm voted most hated witness by prosecutors." Let me know what you all think about all of this in the comments. So this story of J.R. Rubio being bankrolled by the FBI, and this ends up making him, in his words, a much, much better, more effective criminal in several ways, one of which is just the bankrolling. The FBI essentially spent millions of dollars to get skinny Joey Merlino's head on their wall as a trophy. And, it ended up just being BS. They got a criminal. He was a cooperator, a rat. They helped him be a better criminal. And in the end, they spent millions more on this trial. And in the end, it just fizzles, comes to nothing. So reopen the question, the larger question of the government working with rats to get certain people. Basically, they're taking criminals, they're paying them, and they're putting them back on the streets in our neighborhoods next door to our families. And, J.R. Rubio was a bad guy, as we know, but, in this realm of this discussion, he's not even the worst. When you think of the worst, you think of, say, FBI agent Lynn Del Vecchio and his relationship with Colombo capo Greg Scarpa, known as the Grim Reaper. Now, he had a long and storied relationship with the FBI. They paid him tons and tons of money. During the time that he was an informant, it has been alleged that Scarpa killed more than 12 people under the protection and being paid by the FBI. Now, of course, Del Vecchio was accused and tried for murder for giving Scarpa information about his enemies. Scarpa was involved in the Colombo War. We're going to get way more into this in other videos. But this guy, you talk about making a deal with the devil. This guy is probably the first one that comes to mind. Then, of course, there is Sammy the Bull Gravano, was involved in up to 19 murders, and including the murder of an innocent 16-year-old high school student named Alan Kaiser. Now, what is the motivation of the government for cutting deals with criminals, setting criminals up in business on the street, and making them better criminals? This is the motivation. It comes down to one thing: money. Okay. All of these law enforcement agencies, such as the FBI, they need funding. Billions of dollars in funding. And so the best way to do that is by busting people that are kind of high profile or involved with storied and high profile organizations such as the Mafia. Because when you do that, you're guaranteeing you're going to get a bunch of publicity. Now, of course, we know that the Mafia, or Cosa Nostra, the group is a shadow of their former selves. However, they still garner huge headlines. So if you can get a guy in the Mafia, or better yet, a boss in the Mafia, you're going to get huge headlines and you're going to be all over the news. And therefore, that ultimately will translate into more funding for the budgets of these law enforcement agencies. How far can you go? How far is too far? When you're setting up criminals on the street. When you talk about Greg Scarpa, and then you talk about Sammy the Bull Gravano, let's just take it back to Sammy the Bull. Sammy the Bull got 6 years in prison for basically killing 19 people. As Joey Merlino calculates, that comes down to about 6 months per person. I want to know what you think about the stories that we went over in this video. I want to know what you think about the government getting into business with these rats and setting them up on the street to be more effective criminals. Don't forget to let me know what you think in the comments.
Billy Luna. Please subscribe to the Billy Luna channel and like the video. Thank you.